Should we have more girl bosses or more tradwives? That's a conversation that keeps coming up in culture. And I think the narrative has largely been shaped by feminism up until this point, but we're seeing a pushback against feminism, myself included, starting to reject a lot of the tenets we were told to believe about the role women should play in society and the role of family and all that good stuff. So I wanted to dive into that today. There's a clip within this Jubilee video that talks about it, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to watch it and evaluate some of the claims. You can watch this video on your own time if you want. It's called Middle Ground. It's about 25 progressive and 25 conservative guys have to essentially come to a middle ground, get the other side to come to a mutually agreeable position about a claim that's being made. So let's dive in.
We did not find a middle ground in that last prompt, but thank you to Juma and Riley for giving it a try. We're going to move on to our next prompt, which is, does society need more tradwives or girl bosses?
Who can define these terms?
Okay, so a girl boss is like a girl who like slays the house. She's independent, bro. She's her own boss, you know, she don't need a man.
And the tradwife is what?
Traditional. Is like a woman who's like, I gotta cook and clean for my husband.
Girl boss doesn't necessarily mean going out and being a CEO or doing whatever. It's just an empowerment of doing what they want to do. Being able to choose that, you know, the best choice for that relationship is to stay at home and take care of a kid, whether that's the man or the woman or whoever in the partnership, or to go and work.
I don't care if she's traditional or trad. She's got to follow my program and my rule as a man. And what I'm saying is she can go and be a boss at the job, but when she comes home, she's going to take that shirt or hat off.
Okay, so as you can see here, even the definition itself of what constitutes a girl boss and what constitutes a trad wife or a traditional wife isn't necessarily set in stone. It's very subjective. We don't really have a clear definition of what those terms even mean. I'll pick on tradwives as an example. For some people, tradwives represent people who are essentially cosplaying a 1950s style existence, and they do it for social media. And so there's the performative aspect of tradwives and the social media aspect of tradwives, and then there's kind of what this guy is talking about here, where there's a hierarchical role within the household. And that is about traditional values and traditional gender roles. And I really like what he has to say, because this isn't really talked about a lot, but there needs to be boundaries in our lives, and we're not very good at setting these boundaries. You know, work is essential. Everyone works, even women, even tradwives, like everyone works. And everyone has, a role to play in society, but there are boundaries around what exactly those things mean. And what he's just saying here is that it's okay for women to work outside the home. No one ever said that women shouldn't work outside the home. Now, is there a time and place for not working outside the home? Sure. Do women have to work outside the home if they don't want to? No. Do men have to? Like, we live in a remote work, self-employment style economy now, where you really have the most freedom I think any worker has ever had to customize and tailor a work style that fits your needs. And we completely disregard that. But what he's saying here is you can go be the boss at your job. You can go crush it, do whatever you want. But when he comes home from work, when you guys are together, you are the woman, he is the man, he is the husband, you are the wife. And there's a compatible relationship there, and then there's a hierarchy to it. And if you have a woman who is mentally, psychologically, spiritually a girl boss and refuses to partner with someone, refuses to be subordinate, refuses to work as a team, that's going to come into conflict with men who hold traditional values. So I bring this up because we have this archetype in our minds of like girl bosses are like high-powered CEOs, and tradwives are like Hannah Neeleman of Ballerina Farm, who are just baking homemade sourdough loaves for social media and feeding a dozen kids. And I think those are extremes of what the reality is. Like, you can have a job and be really good at your job and really passionate about your job, but you don't necessarily have to work. Like, women don't have to work 100+ hours a week like men do, and then when they come home, they shouldn't and don't have to compete with men for leadership over the household. And so there's a spiritual component to this, not just a professional component.
She's gonna follow my lead and follow what I have to say, because I'm the man. She's got my name. She's got my ring.
No, see,
She's under my roof.
But it's all respect. Of course. As far as the traditional wives, I mean, my wife kind of fits that mold. She does work from home, but I was in the military for over a decade, and so I was the sole provider, and she would stay at home and raise her kids, and that's just really worked for us. So I also have a 16-year-old daughter that I'm also raising to be a traditional wife.
Can we get a show of hands of folks who think they're a good fit for this? 1, 2, 3.
A lot of times, whether a woman should be a stay-at-home wife or whether she can like work and do other things in society is kind of a cloaked sexist argument.
Okay, I kind of I don't want to get too much further. I want to go back to kind of what the conservative guy was saying, and then jump into a little bit what this guy was saying. Within these like ambiguous definitions of what a trad wife is and what a girl boss is, there's confusion about the roles they're supposed to play when it means working. And we've created a binary that like boxes women into these specific categories, and it's become a zero-sum game. So no one has ever said you can't be a traditional woman and also earn an income. And that is just very confusing to me, why feminists seem to think that if you stay at home and raise the kids, you can't also work at the same time. Like, kids are your priority, yes. That should be like the number one thing you focus on. But there's going to be time in the day, early morning, nap time, maybe they're playing, or maybe you send them off to, daycare for 2 or 3 hours a day or some sort of program or whatever. There's going to be pockets of time throughout the day where you're not going to have to pay as much attention to them, and you can do all sorts of other different things. And lots of women do this. This isn't like revolutionary. It's just not given attention because it's not sexy. It doesn't look good for social media. There are tons of women who work from home, so they work remotely. Maybe it's part-time, maybe they're virtual assistants or executive assistants or whatever, but they work remotely. There's women who freelance. I've done a lot of freelance writing. They take projects so they can create a schedule of doing their projects around their children. There's women who are entrepreneurs. Mompreneurs are a thing. They have Etsy shops and mom blogs. Some are social media influencers. Some have products. They have like Shopify and resellers. There's a lot of moms who will go to like thrift stores and they'll take their kids with them even. They'll find stuff and flip it on like eBay and Poshmark. There's all sorts of ways women can work from home and work and raise a family at the same time without having to be a girl boss. So the distinction here isn't girl boss, CEO versus, ballerina farm, trad wife. It's going to a 9-to-5 office and trying to climb the corporate ladder at the expense of your family versus prioritizing your family and building a career around that. And that, I think, is the distinction. You can do both. You can't do both exceptionally well at the same time. I'll give you an example. Okay, I run marathons, right? Running marathons is time intensive. It's a lot of work. I have to do a lot of planning. I have to, eat a certain way, or at least I'm supposed to eat a certain way. There's times where when I have long, 20-mile runs towards, the peak of my training schedule, I will have to wake up early. There's times in my, different seasons of life have different requirements. There's times I've gotten up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure my workout gets in, right? So there's times where you might have to do that because that's the priority. And I have other obligations like working, or maybe social obligations, or family obligations, or whatever. So women can control their schedules in such a way to allocate time to whatever is the priority. The problem with the 9-to-5 world and that whole structure is that your time is not your own, right? So you don't, if your employer, like Amazon's doing this right now with return to work or return to office, if your employer says you have to be in the office from 9 to 5, 5 days a week, and it's, you have to then take the kids and commuting, and when all is said and done, each way you're spending an extra hour every day, so 2 hours every day, one hour in, 1 hour home, to do all of that, you're 10 hours away from the home, right? And there's not as much flexibility there. If a kid is sick, you don't have the flexibility to go pick them up from school or take them to the doctor in the same way that you have that flexibility with a home-based business or freelance work, right? So that's the difference. And then if you are aspiring to climb the corporate ladder, that there's a competitive element to it that traditional guys maybe don't want to deal with in the home. They don't want a coworker, a live-in coworker and a live-in roommate. They want a wife. And so if the entirety of your life is focused on getting the next promotion, like a dude and working like a dude, then you're bringing masculine energy into the home that just isn't wanted, right? And so and again, you gotta contextualize this. What does this mean? Okay, if you work, like my mom works at a bank, right? She does accounts payable and stuff like that. She is not a girl boss. I don't consider her a girl boss. She has a 9-to-5 job. There is some flexibility with her job. But it's also pretty rigid. She has a 9-to-5 job, but she's not trying to become partner. She's not trying to become an executive within the bank. She is just going and doing her job. There's a difference between women like that and women who need to put in 100+ hours a week to make partner at McKinsey, or to hit whatever sales quota, or to become this investment banker and hit this mark. There's a difference there. And so I think we've lost the plot because we haven't properly determined what the definitions are of girl boss and tradwife. And I think the difference really comes down to what you prioritize. Girl bosses prioritize their careers above family. Tradwives, or women who hold traditional values, not women who play traditional women for TikTok. I'm talking about actual women with traditional values. They prioritize family, but they've created a structure and work and businesses that molds around family. They're not just sitting around all day, docile, vacuuming, watching soap operas like people think that women did in the 1950s. They're doing things. They're being productive. They're earning money. They're finding work that's fulfilling. They're just not doing it within the confines of a 9-to-5 job. I think that's pretty much where I see it.
Argument. And so I think that whether or not a man or a woman in a relationship, who's the stay-at-home parent, who's working, should be a function of the individuals and should not be a function of us doing these, gender role-based prescriptions.
I'm caught between.
Okay. So the problem with that argument is that there's biology, and feminism rejects biology. We can see that with the transism and that whole movement. We can see it with the need for women to work outside the home and this push to have women during the prime of their youth to go and work outside the home and not have families and not raise children. There's biological needs, and you can find childhood psychologists that are way smarter about this than I am. And there's people who talk about this, but young kids need certain things at a certain period of time in their lives, and only women can provide that. So if you're an infant, 0 to 12 months old, you need nourishment, and the nourishment can only come from the woman's body. right? And I'm not saying like every woman breastfeeds her kids. There's a lot that, have to rely on formulas for one reason or another, but that's just a really good example. Like the father can't necessarily stay at home during the first few months postpartum because the man can't produce the milk the baby needs. So there's biological reasons for women to stay at home and raise the kids for a certain period of time. And that's a season. Eventually they're going to grow up and they're not going to need their mom as much as they did in the early, first couple years of life. And when that season is over and a new season opens up, then by all means, go forth, go do, create, be a girl boss, re-engage with your career, start a company. You can do all that. But if women aren't willing to sacrifice the first 3 to 5 years of their child's life to be home and raise them and provide the enrichment that those kids, those infants need, the emotional connection, the support, the nourishment in the first, 12 months. If women aren't willing to do that, like that's where I see the problem. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, oh my gosh, as soon as you have children, you can never ever do anything ever again. No, there's seasonality to life, and we've rejected that and this idea that there has to be like equal partnership in raising children. We've also rejected the biology and the nature that comes with raising children. Like, yeah, men can do a lot of stuff to support raising kids. They play an important role, but women play an important role too, and their roles are different. They're complementary. That's how nature works.
Him and him, but the most important question for me is, are you paying all the bills for your home?
The girl bosses have been detrimental to society, and how Tradwives have actually helped build the family and through homemaking raised up the kids instead of them going out to the public school system or being raised by strangers because the girl bosses were too busy working to care about their kids.
Traditional wives is out.
That is a really good point. So we live in a society, and I really want you to think about this. We live in a society where we venerate women who they work, again, a girl boss being someone who works on these 9 to 5 corporate jobs, trying to climb the ranks in her career. We venerate women like that. We tell them that they have social value. And because they are so busy working these jobs, trying to climb the ranks in their career, and they're tired and exhausted, they don't have time to take care of their children, they outsource a lot of stuff to strangers. And again, there is a time and place for everything, and I'm not saying any of this is bad, but I think if you do all of this because you've put your career above your family, I don't know that's a good thing. So we have, everyone sends their kids to the public school system, which for a lot of reasons might not be the best option anymore. But we outsource like daycare and child rearing and education and the transfer of knowledge and values to a bunch of strangers. Busy women, especially women with the means to do so, can outsource, housekeeping and grocery shopping and all that kind of stuff. So they're not taking care of their homes anymore. So they're not stewards of their homes, which means they don't have a relationship with the things they own. They don't see the things they own, their homes, their communities, as value. So they're not like setting roots. They're not like establishing themselves. Like a house is now just like a physical place to occupy. It's not a home. It's not a space that cultivates family and is a neighbor in a neighborhood. So we've lost that. And then because women are, again, too busy, they outsource cooking and meal prep. And we venerate women who, make partner at whatever law firm or whatever, and they feed their kids Kraft mac and cheese and Dino Nuggets, and we say that's a good mom. We say, okay, women, Tradwives, you're bad. Homemade sourdough bread is bad. Homemade soup is bad. Making stuff from scratch, that's bad. Nourishing your children, or just yourselves for that matter, that's bad. But going and picking up, Chipotle or Sweet Green on your lunch because you're too busy, that's good. Feeding your kids a bunch of toxic processed food, that's good. So our values have become completely warped because of feminism and the rise of this girl boss culture. And then at the community level, we've lost a lot of these skills because these skills aren't taught in school, right? Like you're not learning how to cook. And I took cooking classes in school, but I love to cook. So that was kind of a self-selection on my part. But most kids don't even know how to cook. I guarantee you there's probably Gen Zers out there who don't even know how to read the directions on a box of mac and cheese and make mac and cheese, or read the directions on a DiGiorno pizza box and like heat up the pizza. We've gotten to that level of incapability to cook, okay? But we've lost the skill, so we don't know how to do that. No one teaches like financial management in school, right? So young people aren't getting that. They don't know basic skills of how to maintain a home. So even if there wasn't a housing crisis and the cost of living wasn't absurdly expensive and you could buy a home, I don't even know if young people would want to, because of all of the upkeep and the maintenance and the responsibility that comes with it. Like, I don't even know if kids these days know how to start a lawnmower. And that's not even hyperbole. It's just basic things. How to like sweep your floor, how to run a dishwasher. I don't even know if kids these days, I'm honest, like this is a real problem. And so the reason why kids don't know how to do this is because girl boss culture, feminism, has required women to prioritize their jobs and not prioritize their family. So family is second. They're not transferring important skills and knowledge that the kids need to learn, so that when the kids grow up, they don't know how to do anything. And so we have this convenience culture that's emerged, and it's highly individualistic, and we've just like lost a lot of the things that I think enriches culture. Food, conversation with your neighbors. Like, how many people know their neighbors by name, or have you had a conversation with them? You know, we prioritize in girl boss culture like going to brunch and paying someone else for the privilege of serving you a meal that would be far cheaper just to make at home, like avocado toast. Why is that a good thing? Why have we said, okay, buying a $20 avocado toast at brunch so I can hang out with my girlfriends on the weekend because we all work and we're all, girl bosses. Why is the privilege of paying that plus gratuity plus the Uber to get there, why is that a hallmark of success? But baking a homemade loaf of bread and inviting your girlfriends over and making avocado toast at home and just like sharing the meal together, that's not okay. Going out for brunch in New York or wherever and having that experience in public and society and spending money, that's good. But baking something at home, no, that's bad. And I think that's where this conflict is. We've established where social value lies, and the social value has been placed on hyperconsumerism and convenience culture and catering to the needs of busy women because they're no longer to provide for their families in a way that traditional women used to provide.
Outdated. We find that women who have leadership roles do have higher success, arguably, than men because they get people to work together better, I feel. Men, it's about competition.
In like modern society, most physicians are women, most lawyers in America are women, the most educated people out of men and women are women. They attend school at higher rates, they graduate at higher rates.
Okay, that doesn't mean they're educated. If this is a totally separate rant on the education system, they're not learning anything, okay? Just because you go to college and you get a college degree doesn't mean women are educated. What are they learning? I say political science, history, and international relations. What did I get out of that, But you have women with women in gender studies, PR, marketing, all like the social science stuff I did, anthropology, sociology, psychology. What are they actually learning? Like, I didn't study theory in college. I'm self-studying economics right now because I didn't get any of that in college. I didn't read Marx. I didn't read Adam Smith. I didn't read Hayek. I didn't read anything. I have a book on my table right now about Milton Friedman. I never read him, right? So I'm doing that now because I recognize I didn't learn anything. So we take all of these like qualifiers like, oh, women are more educated. No, they're more credentialed. They've done the performance of education. They've gone to school, but are they actually educated? And then that obviously raises a question for the economy. Okay, if you have all these like pseudo-educated women who are now in debt, going into the workforce, working a lot of oftentimes bullshit jobs, are they actually adding value? Is there really like, do we need more influencers and social media managers and brand reps at agencies? Do we need that? Is that really adding value to society? Like, what are women doing in their job, in these girl boss jobs? What are women doing that is adding value to society? If women are in a girl boss job and they're solving a problem and they're curing cancer, okay, great, fine. But if you're like a doctor, for example, and this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. If you're a pediatrician and you're a doctor and you're a girl boss and you're just prescribing medication and you're telling, you're treating symptoms like the sick care and healthcare industrial complex that we live in wants doctors to do. If you're just doing that and you're not actually treating patients, you're not actually looking at metabolic syndrome, you're not looking at the root causes of disease, you're part of the problem. If you are a girl boss doctor and you are telling teenagers who are obese that they should be on Ozempic rather than diet and exercise because that's how you get paid, you get the kickbacks, you get all that good stuff from pharmaceutical companies and whatnot. If that's what you're doing, you're not actually benefiting society. So yeah, you can be a girl boss, you can get the college degrees, you can learn all this stuff or become educated, but if you're not actually adding value to society, does it even matter? I don't know.
The capability women have to raise children, the innate ability that my mother has, the connection she has with me, is something that is very important. And I feel like girl bosses lack that.
If you're going to say that the woman's duty is to serve the man, say it just as much conviction that it's the man's job to serve the woman.
The question, we need more.
That's a really good point. Again, that isn't talked about in feminist culture. It's not this one-sided power structure. It's not everything for the man and nothing for the woman. It's a relationship. There's two sides to it. So the trade-off is woman raises kids, nurtures kids, maintains the household, raises the family, man provides. Man provides safety, man provides security, man provides financially, man provides. And again, I'm not saying women can't earn anything and they're completely, reliant on him, but it's kind of nice to not have to feel the weight and the pressure and the responsibility of keeping a roof over your head. Not gonna lie, like that's a real nice thing not to have to worry about. It's nice if you're a stay-at-home mom and your husband is out working and has health insurance, it's really nice to know, hey, I don't have to worry about the health insurance. He's got it covered. If something breaks down or something is broken, it's really nice to know, hey, he's gonna fix it for me. It's just, women assume, and girl boss feminist women assume that they're getting nothing out of the relationship, that it's all one-sided, that they're just serving the man. But in return, the man has a duty and an obligation to you as well. And if you're in a relationship where that isn't happening, that's a problem. That's the problem. So it's a problem with feminist women if they go into these relationships one-sided, or they're just foregoing relationship at all because they want to do everything on their own, and they're not giving men this responsibility and they're not holding them to the standard of fulfilling it. You're degrading the quality of society. If women aren't holding men accountable, then who will?
Or Tradwives versus Girlboss? That's the question, right? Yeah. So I would advocate for that.
We gotta vote. Let's just vote. How much time? I vote Anthony.
Anthony, sure.
Anthony. Raise your hand for Anthony.
Steve, vote for Steve? 1, 2, 3.
I'm gonna vote for myself.
Well, all right. Well, I'm gonna assume everybody's voting for themselves. Votes for Jay. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, there we go. It's yours.
All right, both sides have chosen a speaker to debate this prompt. So let's bring forward Anthony and Greg. Greg, Anthony, the question was, does society need more tradwives or girl bosses? I'll let you take it from here.
I definitely think that society needs more tradwives. Putting women in the workplace is actually a failed feminist movement, which minimized wages for men, and then it gave the government free control over the children.
I think this is true. So just think of it from an economics perspective. When you have a greater supply of something, the price drops. Take cars as an example, right? You can go and get a Kia or a Hyundai or a Nissan, any car, right? You can go to any dealership, get a car, easy. Can you find a 1964 Camaro or a 1959 Mustang? No, those are a lot harder to find, so they're gonna be rare, and so they're gonna cost more. And so it's just basic supply and demand. So by women entering the workforce, and again, this isn't the case for every single job, but by women entering the workforce, they displace men in some of the jobs that were there. And in some cases, women complemented them, but in other cases, they displaced them. And so historically, and you can see this during the Industrial Revolution, factory owners wanted to employ women because they were easier to manage. They weren't going to, talk back, and they could be paid lower. So this whole idea that women have been empowered by working outside the home and working for a 9-to-5 employer has actually been a net negative for the family because wages have gone down. Tax has increased. When you have two people working outside the home, both their incomes are taxed. You have the government's, getting more money out of the whole system. And so I think it's been a net negative, and obviously there's nuance, and this isn't the case for everyone. But I would, think about where you grew up, think about your community, think about your job. Did it displace men? Like, how many men used to work in your career in, the 80s or 90s or whatever? And then how many are in it today? Education, I think, is a really great example. I think there's a stat now that there are more women who are teaching in primary and secondary education than men. Well, I graduated high school in 2009, so I was raised during the 90s and the 2000s. The vast majority of my teachers were men. Almost all of the most influential teachers were men, but now they're women. So in that case, yeah, women have displaced men from a particular industry and a particular profession. So I think this definitely is happening.
Right, to a public education system, and I think that's also why we have a lack of masculinity in society. So.
Okay. Yeah. So there's 3 claims there. There was the government controlling the children.
That's not what I said.
And then the wages being stolen from men.
I didn't say it was stolen.
Oh, sorry. How did you phrase it?
No, you said it was like minimizing wages for men.
Minimizing. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Causing an impact on men. And then what was the first one?
It was moving women to the workforce.
Moving women, okay, yeah. So there is no statistically significant difference between the cognitive abilities of men and women. You can obviously find an outlier study or two that says something else.
Sure.
And so
that's not what we're debating, though.
Well, no, but I'm building to my point.
Okay.
Yeah, so in that context, I think we should have a society that empowers men and women equally to pursue whatever works best for them and in their relationship. Like,
we already have this society, so I don't understand this argument. Like, you can do whatever you want. If you're a woman and you want to go be a welder, you can go be a welder. There's no barriers to entry. And there may have been in the past, but there's none now. Anyone, you can go be a welder. You can go work on an oil rig. If you want to work in construction or roofing, or if you want to be a tree climber and cut down trees, you can do that. There is nothing that says women can't do that. So there is equal opportunity. Like, women can do anything men can do. I can't think of a single thing I can't do or I'm not allowed to do. There's no legal prohibition to it. There's no licensing that prohibits women. There's nothing that explicitly says if you are a woman, you can't do this. And if I'm wrong, and if there is a career where you can't do it because you are a woman, someone please tell me. But from what I understand, any woman can go do any job they want to do. They can go learn anything they want to do. There's barriers to entry to things. You have to get certain education and careers or credentials for trades and stuff. But those barriers to entries also apply to men. So I don't know where this argument comes from.
For example, we have friends who are married, man and woman, and they are both in healthcare, and they both take turns working. Dad will work one day and mom will work the other day. And I think it's awesome if we have career opportunities. We have things affordable childcare, paid family leave, anything.
Okay, I want to tear apart. This always comes up with progressives. So they want paid family leave, they want affordable childcare, but they don't acknowledge that we used to have that. When women worked at home or stayed at home, raised the kids, whatever. When women were at the home and you had women within neighborhoods in a more traditional society, women didn't go to college and leave their hometowns and go move to cities where they had no familial connections, no network, no existing relationships. When women were living traditional lives, they had all of that already implied in their communities. So I'll give you an example. My best friend had almost a year ago at this point, had her first daughter. My best friend works outside the home, has a 9-to-5 job, but there is flexibility. She has the opportunity to work from home a couple days a week. She was able to get an education. She didn't go away to school like I did. She did her bachelor's degree at night while she was working, but she stayed at home, married someone that we went to high school with, like doing her thing. My best friend was able to buy a house, owns her own home. She's doing really great. So she just had her first kid, and her mother is still at home, and his mom and dad is at home. So both sets of grandparents are, less than 20 minutes away. My best friend is like family. So my mother is every Sunday goes and visits them. And then she's got, all sorts of close family friends and that sort of thing. So she has a network of no less than 4 or 5 grandmas, aunties, whatever, some biologically related, some not, who are all there. So if she needs a night off, she doesn't need to hire a babysitter because she just can call someone. She literally can pick up her phone, call someone, and they will happily come and take care of her daughter. Before she had her, I actually went home for a week, 2 weeks before she gave birth, and I spent 4 days straight cooking for them. That's what I did. So that was like how I contributed to that. Is I went home and I cooked and I put all sorts of things, bread and stews and all sorts of curries, and I filled their fridge. They had probably 6 months worth of food, so they didn't have to worry about food. And so what folks don't realize is by demanding affordable childcare and by demanding paid family leave, you're not recognizing that we used to have all of these things. They were called families and they were called communities. I'm reading a book, Janesville. Let me grab it real quick. It's right here on the table, this book. So this is a book about Janesville, Ohio. Wisconsin, Janesville, Wisconsin. And in the book, it talks about the Parker Pen Company, which was this family run, I think it started in like the 1800s. But anyways, during the 1900s, right? During 1950s and 60s and 70s, it was one of the key industries within Janesville alongside the GM plant, but a lot of the women would go work at the Parker Pen Company. And I don't know if I bookmarked this. I don't think I did. I definitely highlighted it. Anyways, one of the women who worked at Parker Pen Company, she got laid off after it was acquired and all that kind of stuff. But she was talking about how when you worked at these family-run businesses, you were treated like employers had a responsibility to their employees in a way that employers today do not have the same responsibility. So you didn't need paid family leave in the 60s and 70s and 80s because everyone knew if your kid was sick, you need to go take care of them. And you weren't punished and it was fine. You had permission. No one was going to punish you for it. There's no problem with that. It's only recently with like feminism that has changed. So we had cultures where you didn't have to worry about childcare because you had a network. You had your family network, your local community, a neighbor, whatever, who could take care of your kids if needed. And then you had employers who respected you, respected your family, and felt an obligation or responsibility to you, not just the shareholders. And those companies gave you the leave you needed. And so the argument here is that we should demand all this from the state. The state should provide all this. And it doesn't recognize that we had all this in the past and it went away. And why did it go away? Why did we get rid of it? Well, I think feminism is partly to blame.
In society that supports people to make the decision that works best for their family, I think is positive. And I think if we had better options for people to pursue what works for them individually, we would have, as the prompt described it, more girl bosses.
But I think your argument is that if only we were to put women in workplaces, which no one's debating that they shouldn't be, the question is not should we restrict women from doing it, it should be should we have more Tradwives, right? And so my argument is that there are studies that show that having, and I can speak personally, I've been married for close to 20 years. I was in the military for a little bit over a decade. I worked, I provided. That's worked for me. That's worked for my parents. That's worked for my grandparents. That's why we're traditional. We carry down these traditions from family to family. And so we see that.
He brings up another really good point here that, again, is lost upon feminists in modern culture. Like, tradition has a role. There's a reason why certain things are passed down between generation to generation to generation, and it's because it's historically worked. So, if women historically were the ones that raised the children, maybe that wasn't a social construct. Maybe there was a reason behind it. Maybe historically that has proven to be the best path of success for your family and carrying on your family line. And so that's why women played that role. It's only recently, within the last, 30, 40, 50 years, that we've been doing this modern experiment of getting rid of all of these roles and responsibilities and obligations and trying to give people more freedom to do whatever they want. And we're not recognizing that tradition works for a reason. So maybe we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe things can change. Sure, I'm not saying that women need to be locked in their homes and never allowed to leave. But maybe it's not as black and white as progressives make it out to be. And maybe there is a reason why, kind of like what he was getting at, why women should carry the responsibility of raising the kids for a certain period of time. And then, new season of life emerges and, you can go forth and do whatever you want after that.
That our children are thriving. I see that my children have a mother at home that loves them and is able to be with them for their school events or for, sporting, things like that. And it's worked for us. So, the question is, do we need more girl bosses? Do we need more women away from their children? And I just don't think that's what we need more of.
So if the woman is away from, it's just one parent's at home and one parent's at work, right? That's kind of what we're describing. It's just, so what is the issue with a man being the stay-at-home parent?
Well, I just don't think that's the role of a man. Here's the reality. My wife and I both work from home. I'm out on the field a lot because I'm an independent journalist, so I do travel a lot more for work.
Right.
But we both work from home, and that's actually great too, because then I also get to partake in a lot of the things that we do. So if my kid has a sporting event 2 p.m., I'm not stuck in the office. I'm able to do that. But going back in where I was deployed for months at a time and having my wife stay at home, I think that it would have been detrimental that not only do my kids have a deployed parent, but they also have a mother that's stuck at work 8 to 5.
This is an interesting thing that I just thought of listening to this is, again, it really highlights how zero-sum this is for folks on the left. This guy, the conservative guy, is also a stay-at-home parent. So the claim here is, why does it have to be the woman who's the stay-at-home? And that's, I think, the wrong way to look at it. The woman should be the primary caregiver and caretaker. That's her primary role. There's nothing stopping men from also working from home. So if you're a feminist and it's important to you to have equality, why not demand that the men also work from home? I don't know that people have considered that. And of course, not all jobs enable that. But if you're a clicky-clacky person who works in a corporate office, there's no reason why you can't work from home. There's, if you're a lawyer or an accountant, you can do a lot of the same things women can do in terms of freelancing and starting your own company, working remotely, all that kind of stuff. There's no one forcing you to, commute to downtown, midtown Manhattan every day and work in an investment bank. That's your prerogative. That the onus of that is on you. So if this is a big deal, if women really do want equality and they don't want to be the only ones stuck at home, they balk at the idea of being the primary person responsible for that, then find a relationship with someone who's also going to work at home and share that responsibility with you. I mean, that really solves the problem, and that is a personal preference for you. It's not something that the rest of society needs to follow. That way, if people want to have a traditional role where the man works outside the home or has a job that can't work from home and the woman stays at home, then there's no problem there. There's no problem here. I don't know why we're making a mountain out of a molehill with this. There's just so much flexibility in terms of how people can work today that it shouldn't be this either or zero sum game that's been made out to be.
Well, definitely. I think that I think we're not necessarily disagreeing there. So what you're describing is, in your situation, it made the most sense to have your wife be a tradwife, right? I'm a millennial and I feel silly saying tradwife. It's not my verbiage. Yeah. Would you agree that it makes sense for us to have those cases where it might make more sense for there to be a girl boss to allowed to happen? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Sure. Like I think what your argument is that we probably live in a society where women also have to work, and so what I'm saying is, yes, I have a personal bias of why my wife should stay at home, but also there's studies to show that women that tend to stay at home with children tend to have a happier family. They tend to be able to have less divorce rates, for example, as opposed to two people that are usually always at work and they rarely see each other. They rarely spend time with their kids. There's also
I want to go back. I want to read this fact check. They do a really good job.
It's not my
kids.
Okay. Okay. 2010 and no, sorry. Okay. Harvard research study found children of working moms grow up to be just as happy as children of stay-at-home moms, according to a 2014 Pew Research study. Stay-at-home married mothers are 5 times more likely to live in poverty than married mothers who work. I am curious about that, how stay-at-home mothers are more likely to live in poverty. And I hate these studies because I use them to validate my claims, but also at the same time, like, I don't know who they're asking. Like, I personally have never, ever participated in one of these studies. So, like, how do you even verify the veracity of the claims that are being made? I don't know that I buy this. And this is also from 2014, so this is a decade ago. Pew Research study stay-at-home married mothers are 5 times more likely to live in poverty than married mothers who work. There's no way. There is no way. I don't buy that. There's no way. Especially too, because you think of like the people who, like, what are the rates of people in poverty who are even married? I find it hard to believe that stay-at-home married mothers are living below the poverty line at a higher rate. I need to dive into that deeper because that's an interesting claim.
Be able to have less divorce rates, for example, as opposed to two people that are usually always at work and they rarely see each other. They rarely spend time with their kids. There's also some studies that show that kids do better in the long run when they have a parent that stays at home, for example.
What's interesting is regarding studies on stay-at-home parenting, on the census, an at-home dad is defined as somebody who has not been in the workforce and not made money over the past 52-week period, over the past year. And so when you look at studies of stay-at-home dads, you miss out on things like, as you mentioned, people who do remote work or people who work part-time. And so I'm not as confident as you are in the sort of evidence base for this claim that, stay-at-home dads are somehow detrimental compared to stay-at-home moms. I believe it was the...
Again, there's a seasonality to this, and this is what I think people conflate all of this together. Like, there's no one who says if a dad wants to stay at home, like, he can be a stay-at-home dad. It's those early years. It's years, 0 to 5, where you really need to have a mom there. And so those are the years where it's in the best interest of the kids to have the mom at home. And then if they want to do a trade-off and the dad wants to stay at home for a couple of years after that, like, there's no reason why that can't be the case. I think it's individualistic and it's incumbent on individual families to choose what's in their best interest. But again, I don't know why we need to have these like binaries of what is or isn't acceptable and like ignore the seasonality of raising children and the requirements of that and what actually goes into play there.
American Psychological Association put out a statement on this where they said that as long as it's a stable, loving household, that's the most, that's kind of the highest bar you have. But so
I'm just gonna pause you because we're out of time, so I want to push you both towards offering a statement that you think both of you would agree on. regarding Tradwives and Girlbosses.
Would you agree that in a circumstance where it makes the most sense for that family to have a girl boss, we should facilitate that?
I don't agree with that just because you
don't need girl bosses. Like, you need mothers, but you don't actually need a girl boss. It's like a nice thing to have if you want to have it, but it's not essential. And if you can figure out how to make it work so you can, do the girl boss thing without, negatively affecting your children, great, do that. I think for the majority of people, though, they can't. That's why these conversations keep coming up. But to come at it from the assumption that families need girl bosses. Families don't need girl bosses. They need mothers. They need fathers, and the roles those respective individuals play. And if the mom works and the mom makes money, okay, great. But her primary role is the mother, and I think that's what's lost in conversations like this.
You're almost claiming is that the family can only be successful if the woman is a girl boss.
Oh no, that's not what I meant to claim at all. I must have So I'm just trying to say, should we look at people as individuals and look at individual circumstances and then have people do what makes the most sense for their individual circumstances instead of making these broad kind of gender-based prescriptions where it's like, you're a woman, so you should do this, you are a man, or as you do in your own life. It sounds like your situation is not exactly a traditional situation because you are considering your personal circumstances, your personal strengths.
But also studies back that, right? So that's what I was saying, less divorce rates. And then if you want to get into like the intricacies, like, a family that goes to a church every single week has a 50% less chance of getting divorced, right? So it's just a little, I guess, difficult to come to the realization of like, it's only if a girl boss was there, right? Because I mean, that is that question after us. Should we have more girl bosses? Not should we allow women to work, which is part of lawful, way of doing things. So I guess I'm just kind of having a hard time with that middle ground.
Yeah, what would yours be?
I think the conversation I've had with a lot of people, progressive men, is that they think that traditional men are just strictly against women working, period. And that's just not my view. I think that the rights are there. My wife works, right? But she works from home, and it doesn't really interrupt the household,
I think I have an idea. So what about we should make it easier for a family to have a girl boss if that works good for the family? Does that make sense?
Why is that the responsibility of society? So the premise here is, does society need more tradwives or girl bosses? As I just said, like, mothers are biologically and from a nurturing perspective, like, required to raise children. So fundamentally, you do need more women who are willing to play that role and fewer women who aren't willing to play that role. Or put a different way, the traditional roles should be the foundation, with the girl boss role being a supplemental if the season of life and time and preference aligns with it, right? But what he's arguing here, it's this idea that I lost my train of thought. Hold on, let me go back and watch this real quick.
The household,
I think I have an idea. So what about we should make it easier for a family to have a girl boss if that works good for the family?
Okay, yeah. It's not up to society. This isn't up to society. Why is it anyone else's responsibility but your own responsibility to determine that? And that's the claim here. It's a society more tradwives or girl bosses. If you want to be a girl boss, again, someone working, trying to build a career in the 9 to 5 structure, that's how I'm defining it, then that's your choice. That's a preference and a choice you're making. I don't know that it's society's responsibility to support you in that effort. And so I don't know, like, why it already is easier. Like, we've all, especially today in like the post-COVID world where you can remote work and it's just easy, and the internet, like, there's so many different ways you can work and earn money from home. Like, there's nothing more easier that you need at this point, like, and especially because we're moving into a work world. AI is taking a lot of 9-to-5 jobs. I think women are going to be the hardest hit. We're rapidly moving into this place where even the conversation about being a girl boss is about to be moot. So why make something easier for something that's not going to exist in the next couple of years? I think that's a fundamental question. So it comes down to personal preference and the trade-offs, and that's what this gets to. It's not that women can't work or can't, build their careers. It's that they prioritize careers over families, and that's the choice they've made. And I don't know that it's incumbent on society to support that choice. If that's what they want to do, fine, but they have to be willing to shoulder the responsibility and the consequences of that choice.
Does that make sense?
Or let's flip it and let's make society easier so that the male can work and provide for his family on just a sole income without having to put two working parents and sending their children off.
You know what encompasses both of those?
Sure.
So what I'm hearing is that we both have different ideas about what works best for a family. So maybe a middle ground statement would be, we should structure society in terms of our policies, our safety nets, things like that. So whatever works best for a family is available to that family.
This is a really interesting thing I just thought of watching this. So the progressive guy, I don't see a ring on his finger, so I'm going to assume he's not married. And I'm going to assume he also doesn't have children. So he's a part of this progressive zeitgeist, which you have, it's a hyper individualistic frame of reference, of understanding things. So they're trying to provide policy prescriptions for families, but they themselves aren't necessarily the ones who have families. They're not. So it's like, you look at what's happening in New York right now. So Zohran Mamdani has won the Democratic nomination for mayor. He's a millennial. People are obsessed with him. But he's not a family. So he doesn't have kids, right? He's only recently married. So who is someone like him to provide a prescription on something that he himself has never experienced? The ideas are theory at this point. So you have this guy who's a conservative who's offering a perspective based on experience and observation and things that have worked for him. And you have the guy on the progressive side who's offering theory. And the assumption is that the safety net would work for everyone. But in reality, it doesn't, because as we've seen with intersectional feminist progressive culture, it just doesn't work. Like, you can't accommodate everyone's needs. And if the individual is the focal point of progressive policies and not the family, it's not going to work for the benefit of the family. Even if they say in the talking points that it will, in practice, that hasn't yet to be the case.
Whether that's a trad wife or a girl boss in the household.
Let's empower families to do what's best for them.
Yeah.
It's a little soft. I think we need to address, like the role of women, which is what this prompt is saying.
Hearing all 7 minutes of you, it's just, I wasn't convinced of why we need girl bosses, right?
Right.
I listened to statistics.
That's why we make individual
decisions.
I'm not convinced of anything about your life, but
sure.
I think
even though studies show it's better for the household.
So my opinion is that we should trust 2 adult people to make a decision about what's
just very nuanced, though. It can mean anything, right? Oh, well, you should allow 2 parents to just do drugs all day because it's better for them.
Okay.
So it's just too nuanced. What I would say is we can live in a society where I guess, girl bosses can thrive legally and trad wives can also thrive legally. I just think a girl boss can already thrive. It's harder for a woman to become a trad wife than it is for a woman in today's day and age with the current policies to become a girl boss.
Exactly. Culturally and socially, it's much easier to go to college and get a 9-to-5 corporate job and do the girl boss thing and start your own business and play that game. It's much easier and socially acceptable to do that than it is to become a wife. It's much more acceptable to push off having kids, not have kids, climb the corporate ladder, than to walk away from a job for a period of time and raise a family. Socially, it's absolutely stigmatized. There's no, I even, when I was in my 20s, I was a feminist, and I feared the idea of having kids, right? Because it would take away from me. It would disrupt my career, my life. And obviously I've matured from that, and my position has changed as a result. But It is. You can. Society has already made it super easy. You can go be a girl boss if you want to. Society has made it incredibly difficult to be a mom.
What is a version of it you would be able to agree with?
That we need more Tradwives.
You're not giving us anything.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
I'm trying. I'm working pretty hard here.
I think we'll just have to. We didn't find a middle ground statement for this one.
Yeah. We didn't come to an agreement, but I like your facial hair.
Thank you. I like your groove.
All right. Nice to meet you, man.
That is such a funny point to close this out. Go watch this and just visual observation. The conservative guy looks more put together. The more guys on the conservative side have facial hair. The guys on the right look like children. I would be curious to know how many are married versus not married, how many have kids versus not have kids. But if you look at these two, this is just, I think, a good portrayal of the feminist versus traditional archetype. Like, when everything is about you, you're not accountable to anyone but yourself. And so it's hard to motivate yourself, to take care of yourself, to do things. Whereas if you're this guy, right, he's not just Anthony, I think his name is. He's a husband, he's a father, he's like representing his family in this public forum. So he's gonna put a little bit more into how he looks and into how he takes care of his body. And so I think that's also missing, not to be like critical and judgmental of dudes participating in this, but like there's some obvious like physical features you can observe between these two camps, and you can see how one is definitely just how they fit. Anyways, there's some other claims that they made in this video too, so you can go watch like all their different claims. But I really do think this is a conversation, the girl boss versus tradwife conversation that we need to have, because like I was saying, I think jobs are rapidly going to disappear within the next probably 18 to 24 months. There isn't much time left. I don't think that there will be an opportunity for reskilling as much as people think there is. Like, so when we deindustrialized America's manufacturing base in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, all the guys were told to go learn to code. And so that's what they did. Well, now with AI, there's not going to be this go learn to code equivalent. I think people are going to have to revert to traditional values because, like I was saying before, that's what has historically worked. And we're entering this period of great disruption where if you want to survive, you need to kind of bolster yourself in the things that work. And so if you don't want to be a guinea pig in new technology, and you want to be able to support your family without relying on institutions that may not be there in coming years, traditional things are going to come into play. So knowing basic skills, learning how to garden and grow your own food, understanding your role and having a role that can give you value and purpose and meaning, being accountable to other people, building community with other people who think like you, not people who identify like you, I think is going to be really important. So I think this is a fundamental question, because women, and I've grappled with this, women identify themselves with their professional lives and their careers, and that's about to be ripped away from them. There's not going to be an alternative for women in the AI world. I think the alternatives for a lot of people that are going to emerge are going to be blue collar work, which many women, for a lot of reasons, are going to choose not to do, or caretaking roles. And those caretaking roles can either be as a traditional wife within a family or performing paid traditional work like childcare and elder care, especially working in hospitals, that kind of stuff. Those jobs typically don't pay a lot though, right? And so either way, I think women are going to get kind of screwed. The days of, climbing the ranks at Vogue and being, the Devil Wears Prada kind of thing, I think those days are numbered. And so if you're a woman working in PR or marketing or even teaching, honestly, for that matter, I don't know that there's a future for you in the workforce. And so you have to decouple your identity, your individual identity, from your professional identity. And you have to find purpose and value and meaning in something else besides yourself. Otherwise, you're going to get eaten alive by the AI revolution that is underway. And I think historically, Seems like family has been the best way for people to find purpose and meaning and value. And so that's what I'm betting on. That's where I'm placing my bet, because history tells me that seems to have worked, and traditional values seem to have worked. And having parameters around your life, while we think it's a prison, it's not. Jocko Willink talks about this, how discipline equals freedom. Well, what is discipline? Discipline is parameters, right? If you want to lose weight, you have to be disciplined. That means you have to restrict and limit and choose what types of food you are going to consume. You cannot mathematically lose weight while going through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A every single day and eating 3,000, 4,000 calories and then not exercising. Like, that mathematically leads to obesity. That's the outcome. You're not going to lose weight. So you have to practice discipline. Well, I think that applies to every facet of life, not just diet, not and exercise. Like, you need boundaries. You need parameters. You need rules to live by. And some people choose to live by religion. Religion has set out different rules and protocols to live by, and they adopt that. Some people might adopt like a personal ethos or generate their own rules from, Greek philosophy or things like that. But you need a structure for your life, and you need to adhere to that structure, because that is what gives your life, in a lot of cases, purpose and meaning and value. It shows, and again, I speak from experience running marathons. It's not the running itself that provides the value. It's consistently doing it over time, day after day, week after week, year after year, race after race, like seeing growth and seeing progress and knowing that I can adhere to this and be disciplined about it. It's like, okay, I can do this. Well, what else can I do? And you're building proof and confidence in yourself and an identity that you can practice discipline and you can do these things. And when you can't, when you have like this fluidity, this is my problem with the whole, like, everything is a spectrum and we live in a fluid culture, is that when you live in fluidity, you live in anarchy. There's no structure. There's nothing to live around. You have no framework, no moral compass. It's like, it's like if you didn't have a house. A house is a structure. It provides, like, your house, the physical space you live in, demarcates your space from your neighbor's space. And if everyone just coexists in the same place and there's no demarcation, there's no boundaries, there's no borders, there's nothing, like, what is your existence? What is your existence? And so I think discipline is really important. And so when it comes to women, and I know a lot of women don't want to hear this, but like, you need to have a specific role for yourself. And if you want to be a girl boss, then go all in and commit to being a girl boss. If you don't, then fine, don't. But don't deny people who want to live traditionally and adhere to traditional values, don't deny their right to live by that program, because they need the program. They want that. They're choosing that. They want the discipline and the accountability and the responsibility. They're choosing that, in the same way that girl bosses are choosing being girl bosses. And so kind of what the one guy on the right, the conservative guy, was saying, like, it's much easier to be a girl boss today's culture than it is to be a tradwife. And you see that all the time. Everyone puts girl bosses on a pedestal, protects them, emphasizes them. Whenever you see a tradwife, it's always talking negatively, how they're being imprisoned. Like, you look at Hannah Neeleman from Ballerina Farm. There's a hit piece that was written about her, and it was all framed in the reference, like, her husband stole her career from her. She was a ballerina and she never got to be in her career. And no one ever stopped to think, well, ballerinas don't have a long lifespan, There aren't many ballerinas in their 30s. That's just the reality of it. In much the same way, there aren't very many football players in their 50s, There's a lifespan for everything. So she lived her ballerina dream. She got to do it, and then she moved on to something else. There's seasonality in life. There's different things in life. Different things require different responsibilities and you to do different things. Like, the fact that we think there's this zero-sum linear society that we live in and there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things is just, it's so myopic. It's much broader than that. But as individuals, I think we need greater discipline. We need more responsibility and more accountability. And the way to do that, I think, is to embrace traditional roles that hold us accountable to other people within our communities and within society. And so, yeah, I think, does society more Tradwives or girl bosses? I think Tradwives, because it provides the structure that society desperately needs right now. So that's what I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, I would love if you would subscribe, like it, leave your comments too, and let me know what you think. And this conversation isn't happening in women's circles. I can tell you this as an ex-feminist. Like, women aren't having these conversations, and whenever a woman tries to bring up traditional living, they're always shot down by the feminists. So if there is a woman in your life who you think needs to hear some of these points, please share this with them, because I can tell you right now, they're not getting it from their social media feed. They're not getting it from their friends, and they have a belief about society and culture that has been ingrained in them through feminist messaging, and that obviously, as we can see in evidence in the world around us, like, that's not working well for a lot of folks. So if you know women who you think could benefit from hearing this, please share it with them. Cool, thanks. I'll see you in the next video.